What does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review. Today I'm that's two berries, excited to check out Mage Wars Academy from Arcane Wonders. This is for two players, ages 14 plus, and it'll take you about 30 minutes to play. And Mage Wars Academy is a standalone game set in the Mage Wars universe. As many of you know, Mage Wars is one of my favorite games of all time, so I was very excited to see how this game turned out. They streamlined everything and turned a 90-minute game into a 30-minute game. Did they succeed, though? And I do want to mention the middle part is a little bit on the lengthier side. It's about 15 or 16 minutes. I tried to make it short, but I just can't stop talking about Mage Wars. It's one of my favorite games of all time, so I have high expectations for this game. Does it live up to it, though? Well, let's find out. Alrighty then, we're going to take a look at what's showing inside of Mage Wars Academy from Arcane Wonders. First and foremost, we have our handy-dandy rule booklet. It is 26 pages, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples, and while you may say 26 pages sounds daunting, this is a very, very well-done rule booklet. Very refined and polished. Big thumbs up on the rule booklet. One thing I like about the rule booklet is it does not assume anyone has played the base game of Mage Wars, and it holds your hand. And if you have played Mage Wars, then some of this is going to be old hat. So in Mage Wars Academy, essentially you are going to be taking control of a mage. And in the first edition, you're going to have a wizard, and you are going to have a beastmaster. They're going to have unique special abilities. They're going to have their own unique spell book, which will have spells in it. And then you are going to duel to the death. Very simple. So we'll go over the components, and then we'll get a little bit into the gameplay. Now, I do want to mention before we started, I forgot to grab them, but you get smaller dice than these ones. You're actually going to get these yellow ones that are a little bit smaller. I just forgot to grab them. I replaced them with these big chunky red ones because I like these ones a little bit better. But the dice they included are perfectly serviceable. So moving on from there, you're going to notice a couple different things here from your typical Mage Wars. First and foremost, you're going to have this little tracker right here, which is going to keep track of your mana and your damage. Even though your damage only goes up to 20, despite the fact that both mages can take, I believe, 24 and 23 points of life, so that's a little bit weird. But it's a very elegant way to do it, and it's very well done. These are nicely made and easy to assemble, so big thumbs up on those. Next, you're going to get your Mage card itself, which is going to be very useful because you're actually going to be not tapping this, but tapping this to symbolize that you have used your main action. And in typical Mage Wars fashion, you're going to have a quick action and you're going to have a long action, and we'll go into a little bit more of that when we get into the rest of the cards. You're also going to have this card in front of you, which is going to tell you all about your Mage. This means when you create a spell book, you're going to be able to make 40 spell points. You're going to have 24 life. You're going to channel 7 mana each round. You start with 0 mana, 0 armor, various other different things. You're also going to have a special ability, and this one's a very useful one. When you summon a level 1 creature, you can pay 1 mana to have it enter play active instead of inactive. So essentially, you can summon a cheap creature, pay an extra mana, and boom, that creature is ready to go, ready to attack, which can really get you out of a pinch, especially if you need somebody to guard you. We'll get more into that in a little bit. Look over here at the wizard. We got a nice little artwork here. Wizard is actually going to start with 3 mana, kind of wizard-esque, and pretty similar stats otherwise. His special ability, when you reveal an enchantment with the Dissipate X trait, you may pay mana equal to that spell level to place 1 additional Dissipate token on it. This is very useful because a lot of these Dissipate cards, and we'll get into those in a second, I'll actually show you one in a second, can be very powerful, and to just pay the X trait cost to get an additional one, it can be very helpful. So next you're going to get a lot of tokens. I'm not going to go too much into the tokens. There's some special ones that use a lot, which are guard tokens, which will protect your mage most of the time, aside from some special instances, like when you have long-range attacks and stuff like that. These are to denote how much health has been taken. These are special for this version of Mage Wars. For the genie cards, you got stagger and weak and a bunch of conditions, and I'm not going to go too technical into them, but you will use those various different creatures and spells will have various different effects, and those are those effects. So let's get down to the brass tacks of the game, which is the cards, and more cards. So I mentioned earlier, and I want to mention before I forget, the Dissipate. So what is Dissipate? This is one of the new features in Mage Wars Academy that I personally like quite a bit. And essentially, this means you're going to put 2 tokens on here, and this is going to last you for 2 rounds. So this is giant size. It's going to cost you 2 to put down. It's going to cost you 3 to reveal. This is an enchantment, and there's numerous different kinds of spells. We might go into those depending on how we do time-wise. But the creature is going to gain 5 life plus 5, which is incredibly useful, and melee plus 2, which means they're going to be more powerful. So if you have a creature that is about to die, you can use your quick action, because as you can see right there, it is a quick action, and you can essentially give it, most likely another turn, because plus 5 health is a lot of health. I might also notice there's a token right here. That is going to be your quick action, so when you flip that over, that means your quick action is used for that turn. But we'll get into some more of these spells a little bit later. These are some of my favorite spells in the book. So how you're going to be doing this is you're going to have your own unique spell book, and you're going to put your spells in there. So when you start the game, though, you are only going to have a set spell. You're going to have set spells you put in there, and I recommend playing with those even if you are a veteran of Mage Wars until you get your beak wet, so to speak. So another interesting fact about this game is that they have 2 rounds when you first start the game where no one can attack. This is kind of to set up your thing. And I really think this is a cool feature, but that's more in the pros and the cons, so let's focus. So how does this work? Well, we'll start the game off. We start off, we have 24 life. We haven't taken any damage, so we'd set our damage at 0, and we start off with 0 mana. Now, if we were the wizard, we'd start off with 3 mana, but since we're not, we're only going to start off with 0 mana, and then we're going to channel our mana, so we're going to be up to 7. Now, one useful thing I really like is that the back has a rule summary, so you can kind of set this in the middle, and it really will help you out because it's got the turn order, all the different actions, the cast a spell, everything that you're really going to need in a pinch. I even like the fact they have the stagger and weak conditions on the back. This is very, very useful. So you probably set that in the middle, and then you're going to start the game. So I would start with 7 mana, and now I'm going to look in my spell book. And both players are going to be doing this at the same time. They're going to look in their spell book, and most of the time they're going to pick out 2 spells. You're going to pick out a quick spell because for your quick action, and then you're going to pick out a long spell. So let's see. You have a lot of different options to this, and I've took out some of the cards. So right there we might have leather chalices. This is going to improve our armor. So this would be a piece of equipment that you could hook onto your mage. This is another piece of equipment. This one is for Beastmaster only, so if you were some other class, you obviously couldn't put it in there. That's a quick action. It's going to cost you 2 mana, and during the upkeep phase, you may heal up to 2 different animal creatures in your zone 1 damage each by paying 1 mana per creature healed. So in Mage Wars Academy, that is incredibly useful because you are always going to be in the same zone as your creatures. Next, you're going to have tons and tons of different creatures, and this is a very expensive one. That's Raja's Jungle Talon. He's legendary. He's elusive. He's going to be rolling 4 dice when he attacks. He's got 1 armor, and he's got 11 health, so he's going to be really hard to kill. You're also going to have enchantments, and you can put these on your creatures or potentially on yourself. This one is one of my favorite ones. It's Gator Toughness. You're going to gain armor plus 1 and life plus 2, which you will just essentially slide under this card. So now this guy would now have 13 life and 2 armor. He would be a real beast to deal with, but it's going to cost you a grand total of 15 to do it. But let's get back to the first turn, and we'll just walk you through it first turn. So what might I do? You definitely want to get some creatures out there, so we might go ahead and we might put out this Dark Fen Asp, because that's a pest. That thing is going to be really difficult to kill. So, and that is a long action to count that, and then we're going to look for a short action. We have 3 more mana left, so we might go back to those pants. We might say, you know what, we're going to bulk up our armor just a little bit, so we might have these pants right here. Now, whoever has the initiative, and that just means that you're going to be going first on a turn, is going to get the option to do a quick action first. So they might say, all right, I'm going to quick action, and I'm going to introduce these leather chouses. I think that's how you pronounce it. So essentially, I would reduce my mana by 2, bloom, 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 and that would be my quick action. We move back over to this guy, and he might, let's take a look at his spellbook, see what kind of stuff he would have in here. He would most likely, he definitely wants to get something out there. Mana Worm. Yeah, he's going to try and see if he can start really messing you over by stealing your mana. And that is one thing that this wizard is really going to do. So that's going to cost you 5, but since he's the wizard, he's going to have a little bit more mana than the Beastmaster, so he's actually going to have 10 mana right now. So he has that, and that is a long action right there, as we recall. And he might also maybe equip himself something else. Let's see what he's got in the equipment. He might have, yeah, he might have put on this Wisp Willow Amulet. So this has the Dissipate token on it. And this is a very useful card. So essentially, you're going to put 6 tokens on here. Whenever you remove a Dissipate token from Wisp Willow Amulet, you're going to gain 1 mana. So essentially, you are paying 3 mana, and over the course of 6 turns, you're going to gain 6 mana. So early on in the game, this is an incredibly useful one to pull out. So he might do that as his quick action. He might put 6 Dissipate tokens on there, which he would do something like this. I'm not actually going to get all 6, but you get the impression. So he puts that out there. He's now got his amulet on. and then we go back to this guy, because you're going to be going back and forth taking turns. So he would then summon his Dark Fen Ask. He'd put it down there, and it would kind of go like this to symbolize that it's actually inactive. But really, you don't kind of really need to do that in the first round, because the first 2 rounds you can attack. It's all about setting up your thing. That one is going to cost him 4, so he is down to 1 mana, which is not the best spot to be, but he's still got another round before he's going to get attacked. This guy, on the other hand, would be summoning this Mana Worm, and the Mana Worm is a really cool one. When Mana Worm attacks and damages a creature, that creature's controller loses 1 mana. So if you can buff this guy up just with health and armor, he can be incredibly annoying. Not because he's going to do too much damage, because he's only rolling 2 dice, but just because he's just going to frustrate the heck out of you, because it's going to be dinging and denting you for damage, and if you've got numerous Mana Worms, it's going to be even worse. And that would be the end of the first round. So what you would do is you would take a look at your handy-dandy little cheat sheet over here, so to speak, and we would have the action phase, which is done, and then you would reset past the initiative token, so blue. You would reset all your creatures, which just means these guys would now be active and ready to go. You're going to go ahead and flip your markers, so this was used and now it's not used. You are going to channel your mana, so I would go back up to 1 to 8, and then you are going to just do the same thing again. You're going to most likely draw out 2 cards, one with a quick action, one with a long action, and rinse, wash, and repeat. Now, after the second round, what's going to start happening is that you're going to be able to start attacking each other. And this is where the game really gets its groove going. Because everything creature-wise is most likely going to be able to attack, and there are a lot of difficult decisions to do. So on a turn, there's normally going to be only about 2 actions that a creature is going to take. So for instance, let's take a look at this Dark Fen Asp. The most likely thing that he's either going to do is he's either going to attack either the Mana Worm or the Wizard, and if he does that, he's not really good at attacking. He's only going to roll 1 die, and we'll get to the die in a second. He's also going to roll a yellow die, and if he gets more than a 7, then whoever he's attacking is going to get a weak condition token on him, which means bad things generally. So I'll show you through how this would do. So we'd say, you know what, I don't like that Mana Worm, I don't like what he's going to do, he's going to start sucking off my mana, so he would roll these 2 dice, and he rolled a, wow, this would be the best roll he possibly could do. So he got a 7, so this guy would instantly get a weakened condition, and now he also got a 2 critical. So what are on these dice? I'll show you real quick. So you have a 1, you have a 2, you have a 1 critical, and you have a 2 critical, and then you have 2 blank sides. Now, if you would have rolled a 1, nothing would have happened, because that armor would have soaked up that damage, which would have been unfortunate. If you would have rolled a 2, that means this guy would have took 1 point of damage, because, well, the armor would have soaked up 1, and then he would have took the other. And if you roll 1 critical, he's automatically going to go through the armor and do 1 damage. So this was the best case scenario, because he would do 2 damage. So we'd put 2 damage markers on that Mana Worm. And then he would also be in a weakened condition. Now this Dark Fen Ask is going to go like this, not tapped, as we like to mention, and he will be useless pretty much until the next round. Now the other option this Ask could have done is he could have put a guard token on him. The guard token is very, very useful because it's going to protect your mage and every other creature in your area. Because when something has a guard token on it, assuming that someone is attacking melee, I can't pronounce that correctly, they are always going to have to attack whoever has the guard token on them, and then they also get a counter-strike action, which means they're going to go back and attack that creature. But anywho, you're going to continue doing this, summoning creatures, doing quick spells, putting on equipment, enchantments, all that kind of good stuff, until someone's mage dies. Whoever mage dies is obviously going to lose the game, and that in a nutshell is how Mage Wars Academy is played. Now I do want to also mention one of the biggest selling points of this game, and that is, of course, that all of the cards that come in this game are going to be usable also with Mage Wars, standard Mage Wars. It doesn't go the other way, but right now you're going to be able to implement all these cards into your standard Mage Wars deck, so I'm just going to go over a few of my favorite cards in the deck. So I mentioned the giant size already. That one's really useful. Essentially, that can just, if you have the initiative, you can save a creature with that. This is one of my favorite, the Winchwood Fairy. Once per round, if Winchwood Fairy is in your zone, you may pay 1 less mana if you cast an enchantment or an animal creature spell. So if you keep this thing in your zone, your animals are going to be cheaper, and your enchantments on those animals are going to be cheaper. Next, we have the Steel Claw Club, which is a level 1, it's only going to cost you 4. It's not really that good. It's a pest, though. But if you pair it up with the Steel Claw Matriarch, which is like the mama bear, then for each Steel Claw Cub in her zone, she's going to get +1 melee. So if you just summon, 2 or 3 of these and then just keep in their own place, and then eventually summon this, she's going to be super powerful. Next, we get the Jade Gremlin, a pest. When Jade Gremlin is melee attacked, as a defense, you may pay 1 mana to have it avoid the attack. So this thing is really difficult to kill, especially if you're trying to attack melee. We have the Asp, which I mentioned earlier, really hard to kill. We have the Genie, which is a really intriguing one. When a Azirian Genie is summoned, place 3 Wish tokens, which are the tokens I showed you earlier on, as the action. Remove 1 Wish token and target a living creature in his zone. The target gains melee +2 this round, or heals 2 damage, or gains the stagger condition. So essentially, the Genie is going to be able to help people in the zone or hurt people in the zone, which is kind of cool. We have Crumble, which is going to let you, this is the interesting part, gain 2 mana first and then destroy the target equipment. I like that one. Iguana Regrowth and Gator Toughness. I like these because they do 2 different things. This one's going to gain armor +1 and life +2. This one's going to gain life +2 and regenerate +1. So if you have something with a lot of health, that's a great one to put on it. Ankleodon, just because it's a freaking dinosaur, which is awesome. We have the Winchwood Iron Vine. I like this one a lot because it does 2 things. It does regenerate and it bumps up your armor. We have the Pack Leader's Cow. This is Beastmaster only. The mage gains armor +1, and once per round, this mage's activation, he may choose a minor friendly animal creature in his zone, pay mana equal to their level, and place a guard marker on that creature. So essentially, you're going to be able to put, as long as you have the mana, you're going to be able to put a guard every single time. And then my favorite card in the entire Mage Wars Academy, and then I swear, this is a long middle part. This is the best one that I think. I can't wait to use it in regular Mage Wars. This is Slagborg, Fang of the First Moon. And Slagborg costs 2 less mana for each animal creature in your discard pile. Let that sink in. So if you swarm a bunch of level 1s, and then later on in the game, you say you have 6, 7 level 1 creatures in there, this thing is going to be dirt cheap, and he is powerful. 4 piercing +2, 2 defense, 13 health. This is the finisher. This is a finisher card. But that in a nutshell, well, that's actually a long nutshell, is how Mage Wars Academy is played. Alright then, Mage Wars Academy from Arcane Wonders. One of my final thoughts. Let's go to the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the con side, the game's not going to be for everybody. It is still 2 players. Now, you can play with more players, but you're going to need more copies of the core set, which might not be such a big deal once they get out more copies of different core sets with different mages and whatnot, but for the time being, that essentially means you're going to need to buy 2 copies of the game, which is, going to be a turnoff to some people. Also, if you can routinely get Mage Wars to the table and you love Mage Wars, then I really don't know if this is worth switching over to. Because I know for me personally, the main problem that I have with Mage Wars, and I love Mage Wars, is that it's hard to get to the table. It's 2 players, it's strategic, it's head-to-head, it's I'm trying to kill you, and if somebody's new to the game, you can't use custom spellbooks, which is what you really want to do, and there's all those sort of things. But if you can routinely get regular Mage Wars to the table, then this one might not be for you because, well, you might still just want to play regular Mage Wars, even though this counts as an expansion, but we'll get more to that in the pros, because, man, there's a lot of pros. Continuing onward with the cons, if you didn't like Mage Wars because you don't like head-to-head combative games, this one is still not going to be for you. I know mine personally, I was very excited to play this one with my wife. I was super stoked to play this one with my wife. I was like, dear, you remember when we played Mage Wars and you hated it because it was 90 minutes long? And she was like, yeah. And then I was like, this is only 30 minutes long. And she was like, oh, okay, well, maybe we can try it out. She still wasn't the biggest fan of it. So if you didn't like Mage Wars because you don't like head-to-head combative games, this one isn't going to fix that because it still feels very much like Mage Wars. Any other cons that I have with it? You can't use the Mage Wars cards with Mage Wars Academy. You can only do vice versa, even though I'm sure there's going to be a list out somewhere of people who do that. And I want more cards already, but I guess that's kind of a pro, because let's move on to the pros. Mage Wars Academy is fantastic. If you enjoy Mage Wars and your main problem with Mage Wars is they can't get it to the table, go buy this. It's as simple as that. This review should be over, but I'm long-winded, so it's not over. What do I like about Mage Wars? The main thing I like about Mage Wars is that they streamlined the heck out of this game. They got rid of things that you didn't even know you wanted them to get rid of, and they really did make it into a 30-minute compact game that feels like Mage Wars. Like, I was blown away when I first demoed this thing at my friendly local con a couple months ago. I was like, alright, 30 minutes, this is going to be a different game. It's going to feel more like Summer Wars or something like that. No, it still feels just like Mage Wars, but it's shorter, it takes up less table space, and it's just more streamlined. And man, that's impressive. Hats off. I don't wear hats, but hats off to Arcane Wonders for that. What else do I like about the game? Oh yeah, the fact that all these cards are essentially Mage Wars expansion cards, which is freaking-tastic. since I normally love playing as a Beastmaster, I was super excited to look at these cards, and I was not disappointed. There are some really cool creatures in this. There's some really cool enchantments and all sorts of very different stuff. I like the new Dissipate. Man, there's just so much cool inside of this box. So Mage Wars Academy, for me, is a no-brainer. If you like Mage Wars and you have trouble getting it to the table, this is an insta-buy. If you like head-to-head two-player games that play pretty quickly, this is an insta-buy. This is a blast to play. If you like games, just go get this. Mage Wars Academy from Arcane Wonders. It is outstanding. Highly recommended. Probably going to be one of my favorite games of the year. Yeah. Is it better than Mage Wars? For me personally, no. I still like Mage Wars better. I like the moving around. I like the strategery. I like setting up layers and doing this and trying, different strategies and getting pushed against the wall. I like all that a lot better, but this is still a fantastic game. So overall, Mage Wars Academy from Arcane Wonders is spectacular. Do not hesitate to check this one out if you're in the market for a two-player game. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click on the subscribe button down below and in the comments below. Let me know, Mage Wars Academy, does it interest you? And if it does interest you, did you like the original Mage Wars? Have you played the original Mage Wars? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube. That was the probably too long for its own good review of Mage Wars Academy from Arcane Wonders. For more reviews and previews, check back at Bowers Game Corner.